Let's cut through the noise on global power plays and tackle one of the most enduring myths in economics. Do wars benefit the United States economy? In a world of polycentric chaos, with United States-China rivalries, endless Ukraine aid and tariff wars, this question couldn't be more timely. As of February 2026, America has spent over $8 trillion on post-9/11 wars alone, according to Brown University's Costs of War project. Yet gross domestic product growth hovers at a sluggish 2.1% amid inflation and debt crises. Proponents say wars create jobs, spur innovation, and pull nations out of slumps. Think WWII ending the Great Depression. Critics, including Nobel laureate Joseph Stiglitz, argue they drain resources, balloon debt, and leave long-term scars. We'll debate both sides with hard stats, historical parallels, and quotes from intellectuals like Paul Krugman and John Mearsheimer. By the end, you'll decide. In today's multipolar economy, do wars boost America, or bleed it dry? Stick around, this could flip your worldview. Let's dive in. First, let's make the case for the pros. Wars have historically acted as economic stimulants for the United States, creating demand, jobs, and innovations that ripple into peacetime prosperity. This isn't just folklore, it's backed by data and expert analysis. Start with the classic example, World War II. As economist Alexander Field notes in his book, Harvard University Press 2011, the United States economy exploded during the war. Real gross domestic product more than doubled from $1.1 trillion in 1940 to $2.3 trillion in 1945, adjusted for inflation, per Bureau of Economic Analysis data. Unemployment plummeted from 14.6% in 1940 to 1.9% in 1944, the lowest ever recorded, according to Bureau of Labor Statistics statistics. Why? Massive government spending. The United States poured $4 trillion $26 into the war effort, per the Institute for Economics and Peace, Institute for Economics and Peace, 2022 report. This Keynesian pump priming, named after economist John Maynard Keynes, pulled the nation out of the Great Depression's depths. Nobel laureate Paul Krugman, in a 2011 New York Times column, reluctantly acknowledged this. World War II is the great natural experiment in the effects of large increases in government spending, and as such has always served as an important positive example for those of United States who favor an activist approach to a depressed economy. While Krugman critiques modern military spending as inefficient, he concedes WWII's fiscal stimulus worked. Factories shifted to tanks and planes, employing millions, including women via Rosie the Riveter campaigns. Beyond jobs, wars drive innovation. Realist scholar John Mearsheimer, in Yale University Press 2018, points out how the Cold War's arms race birthed technologies like the Internet, Defense Advanced Research Projects, agencies ARPANET, and GPS, military satellites. A 2023 Defense Advanced Research Projects Agency report estimates 60% of modern tech stems from defense R&D. In 2026, amid United States-China rivalry, military budgets hit $886 billion. Stockholm International Peace Research Institute 2025 data, fueling AI and hypersonics, spin-offs boosting Silicon Valley's $3 trillion market cap. The military-industrial complex, as President Eisenhower warned in 1961, creates economic winners. Lockheed Martin and Raytheon reported 15% revenue growth in 2025, company filings, adding 50,000 jobs amid Ukraine aid surges. Institute for Economics and Peace's 2024 Global Peace Index notes, conflicts indirectly benefit arms exporters. United States arms sales topped $238 billion in 2025, per Stockholm International Peace Research Institute, Stockholm International Peace Research Institute, supporting 1.6 million jobs, United States Department of Defense estimates. In polycentric 2026 dynamics, wars maintain United States hegemony. Mearsheimer argues in a 2025 Foreign Affairs essay, Offshore balancing via proxies like Ukraine preserves economic primacy without full boots-on-ground costs. Tariffs and sanctions on Russia-China, e.g., 25% on semiconductors, protect domestic industries, echoing WWII's post-war boom where United States gross domestic product share hit 50% globally. Stats back short-term boosts. Post-Vietnam, 1975. Gross domestic product grew 4.3% annually through the 1980s, per the Bureau of Economic Analysis. Post-Iraq, 2003 to 2011, defense spending added 0.5 to 1% to gross domestic product yearly, says the Congressional Budget Office. In 2026, Ukraine aid, a $60 billion package, stimulates United States factories, per a 2025 Brookings study, estimating $1.20 economic return per aid dollar via exports. Pros conclude, wars, when managed, abroad, proxy style, inject demand, innovate, and secure markets, benefiting the United States in a competitive world economy. Now, the cons. Far from benefiting, wars devastate the United States economy, racking up trillions in debt, diverting resources, and causing long-term decline. This view is championed by economists like Joseph Stiglitz and Linda Bilmes in their 2008 book, updated 2018 edition, estimating Iraq-Afghanistan costs at $6 trillion by then, ballooned to $8 trillion in 2026 per Brown University's Costs of War project. Stiglitz, Nobel winner, argues, war is not just a moral issue but an economic one. The Iraq War has been very, very costly, and much more so than we were told. In a 2019 Guardian op-ed, he ties wars to inequality. Military spending crowds out investments in education and infrastructure, key to growth. Stats. United States debt surged from $5.8 trillion in 2001 to $34 trillion in 2026 per the Treasury, with wars accounting for 20%, according to the 2025 Congressional Budget Office report. The Institute for Economics and Peace 2024 report quantifies global conflicts cost $17.5 trillion annually, 13% of gross domestic product. For the United States, post-9/11 wars drained $8 trillion, including $2 trillion for veteran care, per the Department of Veterans Affairs, and $4 trillion in interest, per Stiglitz and Bilmes. Opportunity costs? That $8 trillion could fund universal health care for 10 years, or the green energy transition, per a 2023 Brookings analysis. Alexander Field's 2021 book reveals WWII's dark side. While short-term gross domestic product spiked, long-term productivity growth slowed. Pre-war, 1919-1941 productivity rose 2.5% annually. Post-war, 1948-1973 dropped to 2%. Field quotes, mobilization distorted capital accumulation, crowding out productive sectors. Wars prioritize destruction over creation. Krugman, in a 2022 New York Times column, slams military Keynesianism. Wars are a lousy way to stimulate. They destroy capital and lives. He cites Vietnam. Inflation hit 11% by 1970, Bureau of Labor Statistics, contributing to 1973 recession. Iraq. Congressional Budget Office 2010 study shows 1T spent yielded only 0.5% gross domestic product boost short-term, but long-term debt drag of 1 to 2% growth annually. In 2026 dynamics, Ukraine aid exemplifies $175 billion spent, per the State Department, yet the Institute for Economics and Peace estimates indirect costs, energy spikes and inflation, add $500 billion to the United States economic hit. Mearsheimer, in a 2025 Chicago Council Talk, warns. Proxy wars like Ukraine bleed the hegemon. China watches as we overextend. Stats. United States manufacturing share fell from 28% in 1950 to 11% in 2025, partly due to war diversions. Cons argue wars exacerbate inequality. Top 1% capture defense profits. Lockheed exec pay up 20% in 2025. while middle class bears taxes, veteran burdens. Freedom House 2026 report ties wars to democratic erosion, surveillance, debt-justifying austerity. Overall, cons dominate evidence. Wars offer illusory booms, but real costs cripple long-term prosperity in today's interconnected economy. In 2026's polycentric world, no single hegemon, rising China BRICS, do wars benefit the United States? The debate shifts. Proxy conflicts like Ukraine drain without clear wins, while economic wars, tariffs, hurt more than help. Stiglitz, in a 2026 Project Syndicate piece, argues, United States-China trade wars cost $245 billion in lost exports annually, USDA 2025, inflating prices and slowing growth to 2%. Congressional Budget Office 2026 estimates, tariffs add 0.5% to inflation, hurting consumers. Yet pros claim they protect jobs. Commerce Depth reports 200K manufacturing gains from China duties, but Institute for Economics and Peace counters, global retaliation costs $300 billion in United States gross domestic product loss. Ukraine won $75 billion in aid per the State Department, stimulates arms firms. Raytheon up 15% in revenue. But Brown University adds $500 billion in indirect costs, refugees and energy. Mearsheimer's 2026 Foreign Affairs essay, Endless Wars Accelerate Decline, China grows 5% while we stagnate. Stats. China's gross domestic product at $18 trillion versus United States' $26 trillion per the International Monetary Fund, closing fast due to overextension. Polycentrism changes everything. Non-aligned nations, India, Brazil, sidestep United States wars, gaining economically. World Bank 2026 report, wars reduce global gross domestic product 1.5% yearly. United States share drops as allies fatigue. Krugman, New York Times 2026. Military spending isn't stimulus in multipolar era, it diverts from AI green tech where China leads. Defense Advanced Research Projects Agency spin-offs exist, but Field 2021 notes, post-war productivity lags persist. Conclusion, in 2026, wars offer fleeting benefits to elites, but net harm. Debt, inequality, lost hegemony. Intellectuals agree, shift to diplomacy economics for true gains. Weighing it all, pros highlight short-term booms and innovations backed by WWII data and Krugman concessions. But cons overwhelm, trillions in costs, productivity drags, Field, inequality, Stiglitz, and decline acceleration, Mearsheimer. In 2026's economy, polycentric, debt-laden, wars bleed America more than boost it. Final thought, as Institute for Economics and Peace warns, peace dividends far outweigh war's illusions. What do you think? Comment, do wars benefit the United States today? Hit like if this debunked the myth, subscribe for more economic deep dives, and share to spread the truth.